I had a consultant come to me one day and he wanted to know what kind of legacy I wanted to leave. And I said, I'm alive. I don't care about a legacy. I want to help people right now. What can I do to make a difference in the world while I'm breathing to even see it? Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Joe Vitale. You've landed on Zero Limits Living. Every week, I bring you inspiration and information to transform your life. The show has become so popular, you can now see it or hear it on 1,000 platforms across the galaxy. It's all going to be posted at ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com. So you can see all the episodes and binge watch. Go to ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com. You can also see the shows on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and probably anything you can imagine or name. People ask me about coaching, and I started a miracles coaching program 20 years ago. It's trademarked, it's a system that works. You can find out about it for free, no charge, no obligation. Go to miraclescoaching.com. My latest program has really been getting applause. I'd like for you to check it out. Go to mentaltimetravelsystem.com, mentaltimetravelsystem.com. My latest book is Unexpected Kindness. You can go to unexpectedkindnessbook.com or just go to Amazon. And now let's get to this week's episode. You know, one of the people who has influenced me the most in my life is Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill wrote Think and Grow Rich and a whole lot of books, but he died in 1970. And it seems like he's had more books published since 1970 than before 1970. And partly responsible for that is the man who is running the Napoleon Hill Foundation, a man I have recently become friends with and saw after a plane ride where we took photos at the airport. And I have him here today. He's the author of this book, Napoleon Hill, My Mentor. You can see all the yellow stickies, so I have questions for him. And his name is Don Green. Don, how are you?
I'm great, Joe. It's appreciate you having me on. I love to talk about what we do, and I've been often asked when you're going to retire. Retire from what?
Right,
You know,
right.
I think I got the best position in the world. I mean, I have a passion for it, and it drives me. And at my age, I look forward to every moment. At
That's wonderful. People ask me what I will do when I retire, and I said, well, let's see. I think I might write a book, meaning I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing as well. How did you first come across Napoleon Hill? I know you didn't meet him in person, but what was your introduction to him?
Well, and well, I always liked to read. My mother told me I would be blind before I ever got out of school because I read too much, and I kind of believed her, but I didn't slow down. But I read. We didn't have books in the home. We had a Bible, and we didn't even have a bathroom until I got in high school. But I love to read. We had good libraries. We had good libraries in school, especially the time I got in eighth grade. And I love to read the biographies. You know,
Mm.
I don't care where his presidents, anybody's as was worth making a book at the library would have it. And I would read them and read them and read them. And we had a librarian, Miss Barr. She was an old maid. Her lips were turned down, and she guarded them books with her life. She had two little girls who worked in the library, and they were twins. I was in love with both of them. They were Linda and Geraldine and Maxine Huffstetler. I wonder what happened to them. But anyway, they worked different periods, and she wouldn't let you take but one book. Well, in the wintertime, sometimes, we didn't come back to school on Monday, snow and so forth, so I could read more than one book.
Mm.
So I would go in there and get one book. When one of them was in there, I couldn't tell them apart. And I would take it and put it in my locker. And then later in the day, when the other was in there, I would go by the library and I get another. So I had two books. I thought I'd done the smartest thing on the world. They knew what I was doing, but Miss Wolf, she never caught on or anyway. I never got no consequences of it. But I
Right.
just loved reading. And of course, and Hill came along, and then I found out, right off, and he was from the area, and then that made me even more curious.
Oh,
Uh,
I see.
I read his stuff, and then I read, he read Martin Samuel Smiles, uh, 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 John Dewey wrote a book on how to think, and Ralph Waldo Emerson. If he
Yeah.
mentioned something in his writings, I'm just like you when you're talking out there in Boise. I got about a list of about 20 while you was done. And so far, 4 of them has come in. The first one is How to Ask for the Moon and Get It by Percy Ross,
Yeah.
and so I've started ordering books. Now a lot of them I'd read, but a lot of them I hadn't. So and I could read pretty fast. I read a lot, and I just enjoy it.
Yeah.
But one summer, I was a mother didn't know what was doing. My brother and I, this guy hired us, and he paid us $1 an hour to go back in a coal mines up in Williamson, West Virginia, and that's about a 2 hour plus drive. And he had a big old truck, and he had bought this coal mines out. And if you know about coal mines, they have little rails that are smaller than what's on the railroad, smaller,
Mm.
and they haul their coal out with little 2-ton uh, carts that
Mhm.
pulled by ponies or usually. And the mine works out there that steel's in it. Steel, I can remember back in it was $300 a ton. He give us wrenches, hacksaw, WD-40 to go in there because the rails are bolted together. And so we had to get them apart and then tie a little rope through the flanges through the hole, drag them out the front and load them. But it was about, I think it was 36 or 38 inches high, which meant you get to work it and you up and raise and you knock your head off on the
Mhm.
ceiling. But
Mhm.
something just come to me, when I was in there one day, and it said, Don, them guys like your daddy's making a living. They killing themselves. Them people you read about in them books, they're making a living with their minds. And I was bound and determined to learn and learn and learn. And I don't mean to boast or anything, but I know I was going places. You can call it dreams, visualization, imagination. You can put any label you want to. I knew as good as anything that I was going to. And $1.15 an hour when I started as 5 nickel above the minimum wage, working for a finance company. And I knew I got married. I was, I would guess I was in love, and my wife was. I know. Anyway, we was married 54 years before she passed away. But I was making goals. That was part of it. And one night she's watching a little black and white TV. Cost we was paying $10 a month on it. I didn't care about TV. I later founded a cable TV company, but I don't watch a lot of TV. And I was making out goals, and I was really getting good. And I put down $1 million in bank, black Mercedes, a gold Rolex, and I handed it to her. And she said, "You're pretty hard headed. I'd say you'll do every one of them or die one." And then she gave it back to me, and I put it in a little drawer in my side of my bedstand. And then she said, "Don't you tell nobody." I said I wasn't going to. She said, "They think you're crazy."
Yeah.
So we later was able to laugh about that, and
And you
but
manifested all that? Did you attract all
yeah,
that?
well, uh,
Uh,
there's the Rolex. It took me a while. See, I've had it 50, 50 some plus years. I've
wow.
said it about every 5 or 6. But I looked on the internet. I only paid $10,800. It's a presidential, but a used one today is 50 some $1,000. So it
Wow.
don't get more. But I thought it, Joe, at that time, I thought that showed, I've had 2 black Mercedes, but
Mhm.
I. This means I've made it. But,
Mhm.
later I thought, gosh, if the money will acquire those things, you could do a lot of good with money also. So
Right.
my focus changed a tremendously lot because I thought I had to accumulate those things. Say, yeah, oh, Don's made it. Don's made it. Look at here. But I realized it wasn't necessary. But I did all those things, and I love the thing from Ralph Waldo Emerson. He said, if we only knew what we was capable of, we would simply be amazed. And I would
Yeah.
include myself in that. I'm capable of doing 10 times what I do. We underestimate what our capabilities are.
Mhm.
It takes a lot of hard work and dedication and discipline and helping others of following through all of those, following through all those things we talk about. And
And did you
it
get
just,
all of that? Did you get all of that from Napoleon Hill? Did you get
Uh,
all of the goal setting and all those principles you just listed? Did that come directly from Napoleon Hill?
Yeah, yeah, basically did, but now I read other books like Orson Swett Martin.
Mhm.
He was a tremendous, you know yourself, he's a tremendous writer. But
Yes.
here's the difference in a lot of them old guys. Napoleon Hill, I got a little booklet. One year he was in 84 different places. He's like you. Of course, your fees are a little higher than his, but he'd go anywhere for $100. You know, peddling his magazine, peddling his books, and talking. And
Mhm.
he went everywhere. And Orson Swett Martin had 2 degrees. He had a medical degree and a law degree from, I believe, Yale, one of the Ivy League schools. Don't remember which one, but the
Mhm.
different. You know his books, Every Man a King, Push It to the Front, and
Yes.
so forth and so forth. And I think I've collected all my old reprints, but he's nowhere the popular as Hill was. Hill read him, but he did not do what Hill did. Hill went everywhere, and he sent books to everybody. If I don't care if it's president or if it's the president of the Philippines or whatever, he mailed books to everybody, and he got a lot of letters back. And it's probably in our file. It's probably 500 letters. A
Wow.
lot of them I recognize from like the president of the Philippines, Quezon or something or other, and William Howard Taft, and
Mhm.
of course a lot of them he had direct contact with. We probably got a dozen letters from Edwin Barnes. He made friends with Edwin Barnes, Edison's only partner, and they were
Oh,
friends right up to the death. He retired to Florida. His letters in longhand would he called him Nap the Sap, but big lot. A few of them were typed on it. Now, I've got one prized possession, 1928 from Edison,
oh.
on says Thomas A. Edison Laboratories, Orange, New Jersey.
Mhm.
Dear friend Napoleon Hill, and he goes on to tell him, I'm getting ready to go to Florida. I'm working on my rubber project. And of course, you know that's in the late 20s, early 30s. They was trying to, and he had a winter home in Florida with Henry Ford. I visited one time. I was down there fundraising for the university,
Mm.
and a little bit of time before the other guys got there, I flew in. They were driving to another spot, and I visited. I thought it was funny. The historian there said that Edison, it was his second wife, and she wanted a swimming pool. He built a swimming pool. He said, I'll never set foot in it. The only reason we have a body is to hold the head up. But was interesting, very interesting. And
Yeah.
but I've read from a lot of other books too. You know that had to influence you, like and you're reading your quotes and things out of P.T. Barnum. I've read that once and I went through it again.
Oh,
But
well, that's flattering that you were reading my book on the plane. Well,
yeah,
tell me, I'm looking at your book, the Napoleon Hill, My Mentor book that you wrote. Napoleon Hill, My Mentor, Timeless Principles to Take Your Success to the Next Level. What are a couple principles that you found from Napoleon Hill that you put in the book that you think our watchers or viewers or listeners would really get something from?
well, I think the first one, Joe, is purpose. I mean,
Okay.
you know, what are you going to do when you get up in the morning? You're going to sit there and smoke cigarettes and drink coffee and watch television and think somebody's going to knock on the door and say, Joe, boy, have I got an opportunity for you.
Mm,
It's not going to happen. You
mm,
know, we got to, even the Bible, if you're a Bible student or not, it says we must find our purpose. Rick Warren's book, Purpose Driven Life, I think it sold 50 million copies or something. That's all it's about. We
yeah.
got to find something or other that we enjoy, that we have a passion for, and that we'll get up thinking about it, and we'll think about it during the day, and we'll think about it when we lay down at night. And so many people don't. Of course, he'll call them drifters. You know, they float from one thing to another, and they never amount to nothing.
But how do you
You've got
find how what if there's somebody who says, I agree with you, but I don't know my purpose? How do I find my purpose? How did Napoleon Hill suggest you find your purpose? How do you suggest somebody find their purpose?
start off and ask yourself what they like to do, what they like to do when they're growing up. You
Mhm.
know, when they're young, what did they like to do? You know, if maybe it's a lofty goal, but maybe you like to play sports. You're
Mhm.
not good enough to play sports, but who said you can't buy the team or be
Right.
connected with sports in some other
That's good. That's good.
method? You know, you can be, and people ask me, said, how'd you get the job? Well, you're going to visit me sometime through the archives, which is a wonderful visit. And we're a small town with 3 red lights, don't need 2 of them. I was a bank president. I'm not, I don't mean to boast. but I had a cable TV company, a dry cleaning business, a spring water business. I built pizza places. I didn't run them, release them, Dollar General stores, and so forth. And I did a little talk at a historical society in Pound, and here's what I remember: 20 some people are probably two things: didn't get paid, didn't even feed me. But I talked about Napoleon Hill, and I listened to W. Clement Stone on the way over and back, about a 50. And to beat it all, there was one person there that had some historical significance. And this lady comes up and gives me a picture, and she was a brother to his brother was Gary Francis Purse that got shot down over Russia. I did not know him. I met his son, but I used to ride to school from. Oftentimes he picked me up because they didn't run school bus where we lived out in the
Mm,
rural area. We had to walk, I don't know, 2 miles, I guess, to catch a bus. So I, being lazy, I would get hitchhike. And he had a shoe shop, and he'd often pick me up. But she gave me that. But I thought about that, listened to that audio when I went on the way back home. So I always keep something to write on beside my bed. So sometimes I wake up or think of something that's worthwhile. And I penned a letter to the Napoleon Hill Foundation because I had been in contact with them and so forth and received literature. In fact, is I took their home study course was $195. But anyway, I wrote them and told them what I was doing. And I got a letter back from W. Clement Stone, which I framed, and he invited me to come have dinner with him in Chicago. And I didn't need it about like a hole in the head. I was president of the Chamber of Commerce. I was chairman of the board of a local Catholic hospital. I served on the board of University of Virginia. God knows I was on a government agency board with the ex-governor. I was into everything, probably more than I should have been. But I thought it was an opportunity, and I look forward to meeting Mr. Stone. And so I got a flight, probably got there 2 hours or 3 hours before the time to meet for dinner. He had connection with one of the airlines that had rooms or what you want to call it,
mhm.
meeting place or whatever, and that's where we met. And they served us. He had the meal catered, and we talked about books and so forth. And he was probably 80 years old because he lived to be 100. But anyway, he called me boy. He said, "Boy, I swear you know more about these books than I do." He said, "You ought to be a board member." And I said, "What do I have to do, Mr. Stone?" And everybody called him Mr. Stone except President Reagan. He called him Clem. I never heard nobody else call him Clem. But anyway, uh, he said, "You just have to attend the meetings. We'll send you the literature and just keep up with us, and we'll pay you travel expense." And they only met a couple times a year. So I told him, yes, I would. And that's how it got started. And of course, and I attended the board meeting. We only had one other uh, CEO. And he, along a few letters up, he fell down the stairs, broke his neck, and wasn't able to travel.
Mm.
And they told me one day, "Don, we got to have somebody to run the foundation. Mike just can't travel. He can't. He's just really not capable, and he wants to hang it up." And I said, "Well, we're in negotiations with the bank, the trustees. The old trustees are living in Florida, and I got a lot of stock." I said, and they told me if we can get a good price for the bank, let's look at it. And so we got to sell for a bank. And so I gave uh, my word to the new owners that I wouldn't go work for another uh, bank if they would pay me a year's salary for my country club dues, golfing, and my car, and pay my insurance benefits. And they said, "Yeah, that's fine." And they didn't ask me to sign nothing or nothing. But so I drew a salary for a year, and I didn't miss a day with the foundation. And it's just been a wonderful ride because they had the belief that the foreign publishers wouldn't pay. Joe,
Mm.
today we have 38 publishers in Russia alone. How I know one of our trustees is J.B. Hill, Dr. J.B. Hill. He's Napoleon's grandson. He retired from Marine Corps and went to medical school, but he adopted two kids from Russia. And he called me one day and said, "Don, people have been asking me how many publishers we got in Russia." I said, "I could get the same. My assistant, I can get him to you in a few minutes." And we had 38 at the time. It's probably two, three, more by now.
Wow.
But that's
Wow.
where a good portion of our money comes from the foreign publishers.
This is
45.
amazing.
Yeah.
Would you say this is your passion at this point, running the Napoleon Hill Foundation, being the CEO?
Yeah, because Joe, I've been able to help. Was benefactor of the year last year, and I've given the university about $5 million to set up. And I'm an old greedy banker. I didn't give them the money to build a building. I'm not interested in having my name on no building. I'm not looking for a statue. I set the things up that they're in endowments, and they only pay out the income off of them. In fact, is we limit to 5% because they'll continue to grow. And we've helped
Wow.
hundreds of kids go to college. And even now, we're giving a 3-hour credit course to the high school kids in a 7-county area. They can take a 3-hour course that I set up back in the 90s. I call it Keys to Success, but it's a it's a uh, it's a teaching of the 17 principles. And of
Mhm.
course, now we provide it online. Of course, it's taught in person in classroom, but it's also offered online too. And I've started it in Tusculum University, which is the oldest university in Tennessee. It's and my social media girl works about 20 hours a week. She teaches social media there, and of course she's capable of teaching it. And she'll start teaching it, and they were just thrilled to death. But we'll do it in some more universities, not to make money, but just the fact is to reach younger people. And my work and yours both. That's probably the biggest challenge we got is to get these young kids believing they can make something out of themselves. You know,
Right.
they don't have to accept the life just everyone's thrown out there to them. That they can make a difference in their life if they take the right steps.
Well, that
And
raises an interesting question, Don, if you don't mind me interrupting.
no,
I know that Napoleon Hill wrote a lot of books during his lifetime. He also wrote a lot of books that were not published during his lifetime. And I know things like Outwitting the Devil has been published. It's one of my all-time favorite books from anybody, let alone Napoleon Hill. My question is, did he write anything for young people? The very
well,
people you were just
you
talking
know,
about.
well, yes. The fact is, our attorney died about a month ago. You know, and we had a manuscript and it needed some work on it. I worked on it; it wasn't complete, and it's geared to the youth. In fact, is when Bob died and his son, I went through it and made some change because it wasn't complete,
Mhm.
and and Bob worked on it and made some comments on it. His comments was on it when his son he sent me 17 bankers boxes and going through them. So I had one that was complete, which
Okay.
uh, which I have a contract already with a publisher, and the other one wasn't, and it was geared to the youth. And I told Lana one day on the phone, I said, "Hey, you always writing something other. Would you write something worthwhile as a kid?" And so she's got the manuscript and she's working on it, and I want to see what it looks like. And it's geared to the youth. It's geared to the
Awesome.
youth.
Okay, that's what
Uh,
I was curious about. Also, I wanted to find out, Napoleon Hill said one of the principles was knowing your passion and your purpose, but he also said having a plan. And I'm going to tell you, Don, that's a subject I've wrestled with, and I've argued in my brain with Napoleon Hill because I don't know how you make a plan when you can't really predict the future. Meaning, back in the 90s, when I was trying to be published and I was coming out, I couldn't predict the internet. I couldn't predict the movie The Secret. I couldn't predict COVID. I couldn't predict artificial intelligence coming around. How do you create a plan when most of the future is totally uncertain and unpredictable? What am I
it's a,
missing here?
and no, you're not missing anything, but except what he said was, you know, I said, if you're really busy, just read the steps to riches and starting off with desire, and but to make them plan. But he said, where people, and one of his tapes, he said, how many times does the average person start something before they quit? And they holler 2, 3, 5, 7. No, he said, I don't average. Average is less than one. Most people have an idea and they don't start. He said, start irregardless of what you know. It may be only a smidgen, but do what you can. And maybe you have to, he said, use, I'm going to do a talk. It's next week on the Mastermind. He said, you have to find people that's got influence and people that's got influence and learn to work with them to take it to another step. And I found a long time ago, Joe, I know you know this. The most help you can get is from busy people. The
Right.
chancellor here at college will be 96, and he was a good friend. He was on my bank board, and he was retired. And we was having lunch together one day. He said he's something that he was learning. He said he learned. He said he's passed along to me. He said if you want something done, find somebody that's real busy because they got a reputation of getting things done. And because so many other people, they'll say, yeah, let me think about it, which means no. And but you can challenge people, and most people are successful. Well, just like you giving an interview, people that's successful, they're the ones that's going to help you most. I mean, that's how they got where they are because
Mhm.
you know, and you've said it, we're only one step away, one connection to reaching the person that we need to reach, and we got to find out who that person is,
Mhm.
and we don't have to be afraid to ask for it. Sometimes we don't ask for big enough, but I'd said the three most important letters in English language is ASK, and I know Mark Victor Hansen had a book come
Right.
out. In fact, mine come in the mail yesterday. I'll try to read it in the next few days, but it's important. It's extremely important that we seek help and not be afraid because we grow up with this one of them fear. You talk about the devil, and we'll talk about it in a minute, but it's fear of criticism,
Mhm.
or saying, and then say, well, I guess my wife was right. I shouldn't have tried it. You didn't want it bad enough. I did a fundraiser with Zig Ziglar one time at a Christian college, and he said, it all comes down to how bad do you want it?
Yeah.
If we want it bad enough, even though we might not know just a smidgen bit, we're going to take it to the next step and the next step until we run up and say, we can look at something to stop us or something to propel us. We can decide which one it is. But a
Mhm.
lot of times we'll have to get help. For example, I got so aggravated in the banking business, the dry cleaning business, and one of the guys I have a mastermind with, we did a lot together. And I said something to, and I'd like to have one. He said, "What would be one?" I said, "Well, yeah, we got a good lot down at the intersection. It'd be a wonderful place." So I ordered a Kid Over Ink magazine. It was $39.95. How to run a successful dry cleaning operation. I can't hang a shirt up, Okay. I mean, I can't. My wife took care of my clothes wonderfully. She laid them out to me. Or if I started getting them, and don't match, don't go together. You don't look good in a brown suit. I mean, oh no, no. So I used to, but the clothes smell. It was old, outdated dry cleaning. You walked in there and the place stunk, stuff laying all over the place. And this thing said, a successful dry cleaner today had a drive-in where the women don't have to take their babies out of the car seat. They can reach them through the window.
Mhm.
And so I was talking to my buddy Wendell, and I said, "That lot, sir," I said, I don't believe it's big enough for one. He said, "Get me a copy of the plan." And of course, he had done building and so forth. He built a lot of stores and all. He built houses before that. And he asked me how big it'd be. Well, I said, according to the guys with equipment, we need this size. And he laid it out. A day or two, he brought it to me. And he said, here's parking places, here's a drive in, whatever. And his people built the thing and it was just perfect. And we learned so much from running the operation. Never spent a nickel advertising, and charge more than the other people, but we did the things that attracted people. And for example, the name of it was The Cleaners. Joe's wife is going to say, "Joe, would you drop this off at the cleaners?" That was us. And we provided you a bag the first time you come there. We find out you like your shirts folded because you travel a lot and you like starch or no starch or whatever. And that goes on with your name tag and whatever. And then we order you a bag. It says the cleaner. That's all it says on it. And you dump your clothes in that the first time you come back. And they not only clean your clothes and hang it up, they clean the bag also and give it back to you. So when you go to the cleaners again, where are you going to go?
Right.
You're going to go back to the same place, and you're not going to look at $7 or $8 a bill or 10 or whatever if you're being pleased. And
Mhm.
and, and a lot of my teachers was I had a hard lady from other cleaners. I was down there in the fall, and I don't know, 5 or 6, 7 little girls, giggly girls in the band. They come into the uniform just as school started, want their uniforms cleaned. And I stopped. It was open 7 to 7. You could drop your stuff off in the morning, pick it up on your way back from work. And we did 1 day service, which is another lesson. And I told them little girls, I said, we're not going to charge you the first time you clean your uniforms. You're not? No. And I said, and now my daughter was in school after I knew they had about 120 in the band. And you tell them other kids, the first time they bring their uniform down here, we're not going to charge them. So after they left, Juanita says, we're fixing to go broke, ain't we? I said, Juanita, do you think Wendell and Don are going to go broke? I said, "Is you ever had any trouble cashing your check? I just don't understand it. I don't understand it." I said, "I guess that's the reason we own the place. It doesn't hurt to do someone a favor. It doesn't hurt." And I said, "A lot of them will come back to us. Maybe some of them won't, but we give them the opportunity to." I
Mhm.
said, "That's no better than spending money to put an ad in the newspaper." And I said, "We do it in person." And I know I was down there, we didn't, that bank wasn't open on Saturday. And I stopped down there on Saturday morning to see how he's doing. And this lady comes in with some clothes, and she said, "We've had a death in the family." Said, "Can we pick these up this evening?" And of course, Juanita know to tell her, "Yes, you can get it today." And so I waited like she left, and I said, "Juanita, when that lady comes back this evening, I won't be here, but don't charge her nothing." I don't even think she uses the cleaners. Well, maybe not. But don't you think she's got a death in the family? That's enough trouble that we can do a little favor to clean her clothes one
Oh,
time.
that's
They just
beautiful.
some people, Joe, just don't never understand. They don't know what doing a kind deed is. And I'm not doing it and expecting anything in return. It's just something seems to me to be human nature. And I've done it all my life.
Believing Before Seeing, a new book by Candace Barr, teaching you how to believe into existence. Available now for pre-order.
That is very beautiful, Don. And you illustrate some great principles about making a successful business. It also raises a question that I wanted to ask for some clarification. Napoleon Hill's most famous book is probably Think and Grow Rich. And if there's any criticism about it, it might be that it's too much focused on being rich. It's focused on money. Now, you and I both know that he had a wider concept about success than just money. Money was part of it. And that title, Think and Grow Rich, was fantastic. That's what pulled in the people back in the 1930s, still helps people today. But what I want to know is Napoleon Hill expanded his definition of success after he went through a divorce, and I think even bankruptcy. What is his definition of success today, or what are your words for Napoleon Hill's definition of success?
Well, Joe, he wrote a book that didn't sell as good. It's the
Yeah,
last book published before he died. It's Grow Rich with Peace of Mind.
yeah,
He realized all these stories, these people didn't accumulate money. Now, and I got friends, and I wouldn't mention them's name, but money's got two aspects of it. Don can have money, or money can have Don. When the money's got me, I got problems because I'm never going to have enough unless I pay Elon Musk. Probably not going to happen. And it's a tool that can do a lot of good. But in that, he did not list the money as the first as the most important thing, economic security. But people got to realize he wrote that book in the middle of the Depression, 1937, was when it published, and he said on the first copy, it's the one you got up the top. It said for men and women who resent poverty. They
yeah.
dropped that in the 40s, and they put 2.5 million copies gold, 5 million copies sold, 10 million copies sold, so whatever. But his opinion, I think, changed some, which would only be natural as you mature. And he's seen these stories of these other guys that have been rich and have met tragic ends,
Mhm.
and so I think it's important he matures. It's like we all do. I
Mhm.
mean, I don't think it's no big deal to own a Rolex. I'd sell mine, but somebody say, "Well, Don's went broke," and so I've had it so long. But uh, yeah, I think we all is mature because we're not going to be remembered for what we got. We're
Mhm.
going to be remembered for what we gave back.
That's
The
beautiful.
only people that's going to, when you're laying there and laid out flat, maybe some of your relatives are wondering how much did he leave me or whatever, or so forth and all. But most of the people, I'd hope they'd say, "I wonder how many kids that guy sent to school, you know,
Mhm.
and so forth." I would hope that that would be, but the
Yeah.
thing of it is, I wrote a book with Jim Stovall. It should be, he left a legacy. Well, I mean, Joe and Don don't have to die to do some good. We can do the good while we're here, and we can see the benefits of what happens. We help other kids,
Exactly.
and
Exactly. I, I
I
had a
think
I had a consultant come to me one day and he wanted to know what kind of legacy I wanted to leave. And I said, I'm alive. I don't care about a legacy. I want to help people right now. What can I do to make a difference in the world while I'm breathing to even see it? So I totally agree with you on that one. The other thing you mentioned a couple of times is a mastermind. And it's one of my favorite principles from Napoleon Hill. And I think he coined the word mastermind for the definition we use. What is your definition of a mastermind? Or what
I,
is the
I, I gotta use this. Of course, I know you. I don't do as many of them talk things as I'm asked because you and I both, well, you never get nothing done if you
right?
surrendered all of it. But Hill's definition is two or more people working in perfect harmony for a common purpose. And
Hmm.
now it ain't you and I could get around and with a bunch of friends and all, we could eat pizza and drink beer or what we're drinking and tell about how good each other is, what all we're going to do. And all. It's not a mastermind, not according to Hill. It's a common purpose, and he gives some of the best examples ever was. And I would talk about some of them. And of course, one of them is early. One's his stepmother. His mother died when he was 8 years old, and about a year later, his dad married a widow woman who was a school teacher. Her dad was a doctor. Her husband had been a high school principal, so she was well educated. At the time Hill was going to school, it wasn't mandatory, and they only went 3 or 4 months a year. And the boys typically quit school when they're 13 or 14, went to work in the coal mines, and that's what their family thought they ought to do. And the girls got married around 13, 14. And if they got 16 or 17, they's old maids. And so um, the things do change the way you look at them. But he give all kinds of examples. Of course, I think no better one is Andrew Carnegie. And I'll cover that because if Joe and I get together a mastermind and we get Russell and Justin and we get half a dozen people in it like he did. He didn't know nothing about making steel, although he did go to England and study it. But he didn't know about making steel, but he had the concept. So he starts together attorneys and accountants and so forth. And he thought from Europe, I think France, he found the best chemist that knew the steel industry, and he hired him at high price. But the guy had problems. He couldn't get along with the other personnel. So what does he do? Shut down? No, you get rid of that one member that's disrupting the harmony. And of course, that's if it's Joe, your mastermind, it's your job primarily to keep harmony
Mhm.
among people, and it's amazing what you can accomplish. I mean, I would, for example, tell about the some of the businesses I did, like a dry cleaning business. I know nothing about doing a building or drawing plans or whatever. I knew a little bit about finances and so forth, and doing a budget after I found out the cost and the labor and what have you. And I told them guys, well, we can make money the first year. We did. I think it was 8 or 9 months. And we made a lot of money, and we would have still had it today, I guess, except Walmart came along. We've been there 17 or 18 years. I told them business wasn't for sale, and I knew they had option on the land behind us. And I
Mhm.
said, well, if you do want to buy it, I said, it's $2 million. They said, land like that ain't worth that. And I said, it's not for sale. And I don't know where it's 2 or 3 days. They brought us a check for 20 some $1,000 cashier's check. If we would hold it till deed got some, and there was nothing said about coming down on the price. And then I was so heavily involved in Napoleon Hill, I didn't look for another place. One of the partners, I let him have my part equipment, and he put it up in another place. But
Mhm.
it was an enjoyable thing. But we got to use other people. I could always contribute something other on finance, budget, and whatever. But so much of the aspect I didn't know, and that's what we got to use.
Other
We got to
people.
use other people that contribute.
If there are people that
But
are watching or listening and they want to make a mastermind, what's your advice on how can they put together a mastermind? If you're talking to somebody, say you're coaching them, you're mentoring them, they're sitting in front of you and they say they saw this interview, I want to put together a mastermind. I don't even know where to start. Where would they start?
well, I think the first is what do they want to accomplish? I mean, do they want to develop spring water? Do they want to do a cable TV? And study it. But then they got to select people, not their relatives, not their friends, not
Mhm.
people they like or whatever. But each person should be able to contribute in some way, whether it be finance, uh, 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 or labor relations,
Mhm.
personnel, different fields. It would make the thing at each one, and it's got to be determined. Nobody does something for nothing. Now, if you and we could get Michael Jordan in on something or another, he might be interested in doing something other for that town there in North Carolina where they filmed the movies at. Skip the name, but he went to school. He might
Mhm.
would be interested in something another that that would help his little town or his little school. We find out what motivates them. Some people would be strictly being more than 20% of the profit, and the other one would be semi-humanitarian. They believe in what you're doing, and they want to contribute. But each person has got to be motivated for something, or else why should they show up and contribute what their time and talents? But to start off with, you got to say, I've always wanted to do this type of business. Well, you try to acquire some people that, because you and you may know all the answers. I sure wouldn't know all the answers, and we got to acquire some people that can help us to the next level.
You know, one of the things that fascinates me about masterminds is Napoleon Hill said, when the group gets together, there's a third mind. How do you define the third mind? What is the third mind that he was referring to?
I guess it would be in math. We'd say 1 + 1 is 2, but it's not more. But it's not more than that. As a group, it creates a gathering of a lot more can be done through a group of people. I guess you could talk about the 56 signers of Declaration of Independence. You know, a group that's it's got a foresight of what can be done and so forth and so forth. Now, you'll end up a whole lot more than what one person would be added to one person if it's all being done directed in one direction. And I think we could raise ourselves. I mean, I know some of the like the spring water. That was funny. Well, Wendell and I was in Lee County. That's a county that joins Kentucky, and we belonged to a golf course down there. And he had a lot of convenience stores, and we stopped at one of them. We had been discussing spring water and been studying it just in its infancy. And he had a guy that was retired from the military, Jury, I can't remember his last name, Cypress. And Jury said, Wendell said, somebody's in here the other day said you and Don talking about bottling spring water. And Wendell said, yeah, we kind of looking into it. And because we went up to Marion, Virginia, up in the Blue Ridge, and some of the NFL ball players, I can't remember the name, was that they'd invested. And we just started. He said, surely to God, you boys don't think people are going to pay for water. And I thought we got a good life out of it, but it was a terrific project. We found 90-some acres, and 92 to be exact, in the mountains that join Virginia. If you went to the top, it was rugged rocks, and there was water coming out of them rocks, and it was called Blue Willow Springs. And people would bottle that stuff up, and they'd come from Indiana. They'd move. When they come back in to visit, they would fill up bottles, everything good, take that water back with them. So the man and woman owned it. They must have been in their 80s, had no children, and they had 4 nieces and nephews, and they wanted to sell the land and divide the money. They could divide the land. And so we bought it from them, and there was actually 4 of us in the thing. And it was a wonderful project for close to, I don't remember the years, close to 20. We didn't actually bottle it. We studied it and got a place. Spring water is kind of funny. It's got they're located at the association in Arlington, Virginia. It's got a lot of requirements. To call it spring water, it has to be bottled at the source. In other words, you can't run water and put it in a truck, haul it somewhere and bottle it, call it spring water, because they say no matter what it's put in, contaminated. So it has to be bottled at the source. So we had to run study on the water. It had no contaminants in it. There was no barn. There wasn't no people living behind it or manufacturing, nothing like that. Just solid rocks and up to the state line and up to the other side. Beautiful country, all wooded. And while we was doing it, the little town there in Rose Hill, they contacted us what we were doing and said they would like to buy the water rights because for use of the small community. And so we sold it to them. We sold the water. They paid us more for the water and we paid for the land. And then they made us a large payment for, I don't know, 16, maybe 18 years until they got a federal grant and could do their own, got federal money and they could do their own. And so here we are with that. But this time we don't want to bottle water. So Lincoln Memorial University, an old college set up on right on the Tennessee line, that Lincoln is named after him because he encouraged to be established to help the people that fought on the side of the North.
That is so wild.
So they owned the land that joined ours, and it actually was told it came from Henry Ford. So,
Oh,
and so we gave it to them. We gave it to the university. We signed the deed over. They got an appraisal, and it was a terrific thing on our tax for that year.
I
But we gave it all away.
I
And,
love stories like that. I have to ask you a couple of questions about Napoleon Hill that are semi-critical because I need to get your vision, your view, your answer, your vision of this. Some people have said Napoleon Hill was the greatest con artist, that he was actually a liar, that he actually never met with Andrew Carnegie, and he never got the assignment or the challenge to do the research to create the science of achievement, that Napoleon Hill actually made it all up. What is your
well,
take? Yeah,
of course, it was over 100 years ago,
yeah.
but there's so much evidence. We have pictures of Carnegie and Hill together
Okay,
uh, in
great.
our files. And and when we went to the April the 30th, I guess, we put an event on in the Andrew Carnegie Mansion. They told us it's the first time they'd ever allowed it. They had pictures of Napoleon on one side, Andrew Carnegie on the other. They showed us a library where they met and so forth. And
Wow.
like somebody, I wonder where it come from like this. Okay, like a 3 feet from gold.
Yeah.
That's a good story, isn't it? I was one started that book, 3 Feet from Gold, and got Sharon and Greg to to finish up on the thing, but it was my idea, and it belongs to us. But that story, 3 Feet from Gold, I ran across a newspaper ad. It's in my office, or it's in the archive. I got several copies of it.
Mhm.
February 1933. R.U. Darby and Associates present Napoleon Hill. It's at the Baltimore Bank and Trust in Baltimore. It's a free lectures, and of course, R.U. Darby and Associates in 1933. He was in the insurance business. But, he told Hill about going out there digging for that gold. It runs out and so forth. You could say, that's a good story. Did it really happen? Well, yeah, it really happened. And he told him also about his uncle had the mill at the little, he's called it Colored Girls. And my mammy got to have 50 cents. Of course, that's less known persistence. But we got the newspaper ads.
Uh,
And we know, like from Edison, we got all kinds of pictures of him and Edison, letters from Edison on his laboratories. And his personal friends with Barnes. I probably got a dozen letters and files from Barnes,
mhm.
and all kinds of things. But I had a guy who was advertising the thing. Napoleon Hill died broke. Buy my course for $195, and you could prevent going broke as Napoleon Hill did. I actually called the guy. I told him, I said, I've got his will. You give me a $250 donation, and I'll send you a copy of the will. Or you'll either take the course down and you'll be ashamed of yourself. If you don't know no better, you do now. And he took it down. He took it
Uh,
down.
mhm.
In fact, I laid copies of both of them were in the archives. I got a copy of her. She was worth more than $1 million. He died in 70, and he
Mhm.
died in 84. Yeah, he had ups and downs, but he went through 2 world wars. He went through a depression, and then like he had a school going great. War breaks out. Most of his students have been young men, and of course they ain't gonna pay when they're off in service. And he did, and he probably was a dreamer. He had a lot of
Mhm.
schemes that didn't work. But from 1943, when he married Annie Lou, she was a bookkeeper for William Jacobs, who had a publishing company. Jacob Publishing. He was also president of the Presbyterian College in Clinton, South Carolina. He brought Hill down there to lecture and so forth, and he met Annie Lou, and she worked. She was 48, wasn't a spinster. She dropped out of college to help her family. Her daddy died at an early date, and they had like 7 or 8 kids in the family. And she was the oldest one at home. She had worked 28 years, and they courted for 2 years. And she drew up a prenup agreement because of problems he had financially, and she run the finances. He had no financial problems from 1943 till he died in 1970. And his
Oh,
will and hers was to set up a nonprofit, Napoleon Hill Foundation. And God knows what he could have sold everything for. I mean,
yeah.
what Russell and some of them people
Right.
pay for things that come out of his
Mhm.
come out of his material. So it's like somebody want to criticize one of your books. I got a real good answer for them. I said, them that can do and them that can't criticize.
Right.
You know, write your own book and get out there and see. Because even college professors, they think you write a book and they're going to line up and buy it. They don't realize a book you write is just started. You got to sell it.
Yeah,
You got to
that's the
sell it
truth.
and sell it and sell it.
Yep.
And It's
Ri-
8
ri-
million books on Amazon, I think, today. And to go in there and pick yours out, somebody's got to tell you to go in there and buy Joe Vitale's book.
Writing the book is the easy part. Writing the
Yeah.
book is easy compared to what you got to do afterwards for the rest of your life if you want to market it. Which leads me to, in your book, you have a section of quotes, your favorite quotes in the back. And I want to tell you my favorite quote, which is not there, is the quote from Napoleon Hill says, if a man can conceive it and believe it, then you can achieve it. And I love that quote. I even printed it on index cards so I can give them out to people so they can reflect on that. But I
Well,
notice some people make fun of it because they'll say things like, oh, does that mean I can fly to the moon? And then I'll say, look at the quote. The quote says, if you can conceive it, well, maybe you can conceive flying to the moon, but can you believe flying to the moon? No. Well, you just proved his quote correct. So if you can conceive it and believe it, then you can achieve it. And that raises the question, Dawn, do we have any limits? This show is called Zero Limits Living. I treat it as an exploration of our limits. Do we have limits? If so, what are they? Given
I,
Napoleon Hill's quote, what would you say?
I don't think they are. You know, we used to say the sky's the limit. That was a common saying growing up. Well, I got a friend who served on NASA board. He's on the Space Administration board. He's a friend of Elon Musk, and he's on the board for Israel for their space administration, known all over. And but we have a discussion. He was in my first class, by the way. He was an attorney. He was in my first class back in the 90s, and stayed constant friend and so forth. And so I told him one day, you know, we used to say sky's the limit, but the largest undiscovered territory is the human mind.
Hmm.
You know, it's the human mind, and I mean, it's amazing. Why can you take two people seem to be born under the same circumstances, same background? Well, the good Lord gave us the right to make decisions. The greatest power is power of choice. You can decide to get up in the morning and start smoking pot if you want to, or you can decide you're going to go out and meet some people because you got some ideas. But the choice remains with us. We got choices that animals don't have, and that makes all the difference in the world. You make enough of right choices, you're going to be successful. You don't make enough bad ones, they're going to put you in one of them places where they tell you when you get out in the exercise yard, they're going to tell you what to eat. They're going to put your food under the thing, and they're going to cut the lights out when they want to cut the lights out. All because of the decisions you made that weren't right. But I'll send you a stack of them. And that was a good thing that you said, was because actually I've got it printed on parchment paper that's frameable, and
Oh,
so
wow.
I've just made a note. I will. I've got stacks of some of his more famous quotes.
Oh, great.
I'll mail you some of you. I love that one. I love that one. I love that one. That one
Yeah.
too. And I don't know when doing it. I guess that's my favorite one. Fact is, we've got it engraved in wood in the plaques on the.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's a great statement.
in the
Don,
art guide.
we're about out of time, so I want to sneak in one more question. And my question is, what is the question you wish I had asked you? When you knew I was going to interview you, were you thinking in your mind, oh, I hope you asked me about this. I hope I get a chance to talk about such and such. Is there something you were really hoping we would cover?
Well, maybe how the Outwitting the Devil came about.
Oh, how did Outwit the Devil come? That Outwitting the Devil is a masterpiece. My God, I love that book.
I had that manuscript. In fact, just had two copies. I gave one to Russell, but anyway, I would ask the trustees about it, and it came through Charlie Johnson, who's Dr. Charlie, who's Hill's, was his uncle by marriage, and I'd asked about it. Donald, he always called me Donald. Donald, and women didn't want that book published. I read it 4 or 5 times, and so one day he called for something or other, and I said, Charlie, I'd like to publish that book, Outwitting the Devil. I said, we can make a lot of money to give the scholar. I know it will do well. Now, Donald, them women didn't want that book published. I said, hell, Charlie, both them women are dead. One of them was his wife, who was a doctor also, and the other one was Napoleon Hill's wife. Well, you're going to do it anyway. Go ahead. No, Charlie, you're the board. I make a decision. I'm telling you, you're always saying about us helping the kids. We're missing it on it. It's just dealing with your, go ahead. So I did, and of course, you know, it's in 63 different languages.
It's amazing.
I licensed it a couple months ago in Ukraine. I guess they were
Wow.
thinking about Putin or something. I don't know. But anyway, we last time you drink. It's lasted in Hebrew, you name it, just about it's there. But it's a tremendous seller. I don't know how much money we made, but it's a lot. And but one day the assistant walked back and said, "Charlie's on the phone." I pick up the phone. "Hey, Donald," he said, "I'm speaking to 50 some cardiologists in a few days." He said, "You think you could send me about 50 of them books to give away?" And I said, "Yeah, they'll fix them up and send them to you." We sent him the 50 some books and said, I told my sister, that's a long way from not wanting it to be published. All of a sudden now they wanting 50 copies. And I
Right.
even had a couple of them that got together and said they thought we ought to remove the name devil out of the book, and that wasn't, for what grounds. But the I explained it pretty good. Hill
Yeah.
said one time, said, imagine a little demon, a devil sitting on your shoulder whispering,
Yeah.
"Joe, you can't do that."
Yeah.
"What do you mean you're gonna get in touch with Russell? You can't do that. You don't
Right.
know nobody. I mean, what's wrong with you, Joe?" And he said, "You got to knock that demon off your shoulder."
Mm.
And that's all it is. It's dealing with fear. And that fear is the one thing that holds people back. Their fear of failure, fear of criticism, fear of all these other different things. And unless you can conquer those, there's no way you're going to be successful. But the fear is, I had the quote in there when I did this: fear is a man-made devil. We
Mm.
create our devils within our own mind,
Mm.
and with our warped thinking. And
That's
it serves
amazing.
so many purposes. Uh, if you realize that you can't be worried about something other if you're involved in helping someone else. Your
Yeah.
your thoughts will transfer from your thinking. "Oh, poor old Joe, I got this place on there. This must be cancer. Look, I got brown spots all over me." And you think about somebody that's in bad shape and what you can do to help a kid or a young person or something like that. Your trouble will disappear.
Yeah. They'll
Uh,
disappear.
and the word
John,
is
I can't thank you enough. We're out of time here. I want everybody to go to the website is naphill.org. Is that the website you want them to go to?
yeah, yes.
Naphill.org.
Yes, and I've made a note. I'll send you some of them nice parts of which are frameable that whatever the man can see and believe the man can achieve.
I'll send you my address. That'll be fantastic. Don Green, I can't thank you enough. He's written a bunch of books. Napoleon Hill, my mentor, is one of them. That's Napoleon Hill on the cover, not Don Green. Everybody, you've been watching Zero Limits Living. I'm Dr. Joe Vitale. You can watch this show on 1,000 platforms or just go to ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com. Check out Miracles Coaching, miraclescoaching.com. Want to thank Lux Media Studios, Candace Barr for making this happen, Nick's running the cameras and equipment. I want to thank all of you for being here, supporting us, and going for a Zero Limits Living lifestyle. Godspeed to all of you. Expect miracles. I love you.